Hey inventors, got an idea for the next big toy? Then get down to the Inventors Workshop on September 20th and pitch your idea to Hasbro, Argos and more. Visit inventorsworkshopevent.com to book your place at Whittlebury Hall.
Hello and welcome to episode 28 of the Meet the Parents podcast for another half an hour of parenting-based chat. I'm Tim from Slouching Towards Thatcham, and tonight I'm joined by Vicky from Verily Victoria Vocalisers. Good evening.
Hello, Tim.
So tonight Vicky and I are going to be chatting about the latest chapters in her conception story and all the other things she's been up to this summer. And then I'll be doing the last of my series of 3 interviews with parents who've set up their own brands within the toy industry as I talk with Rena Nathanson, the creator of the popular word game Bananagrams. So it's been nearly 2 months since Vicky and I last chatted on the podcast, so let's catch up with what she's been up to over the past few weeks. Now, we've spoken on a number of previous occasions about your quest to conceive a second child. You've already got a daughter, Grace, from a previous relationship, and you've been trying for a baby with Ross for quite a while now. So can you just remind us quickly about the background to that?
Sure thing, yeah. So Ross and I have been trying for a baby now for over 3 years. We've had 2 losses in that time. The first was a miscarriage. That was in October 2013, and the second was an ectopic pregnancy in December 2014. Since then, we've been unsuccessful, and it's been discovered that my AMH levels are low. So the chances of us conceiving aren't that high. So as a result of that, we started to look into egg donation last year. We went to the fertility show in November last year and came across a few clinics. Went to one back in March. And unfortunately, that attempt was unsuccessful. So that's where we are there. Cyprus, I don't know, we're sort of in 2 minds about it at the moment. I'm not going to go into great big detail, but we are going to be doing it again. So as you know, Tim, we entered a competition with the Fertility Road magazine. And they were advertising for couples to come forward, enter a competition and put their case forward to win egg donation treatment, which is obviously, as I said, what we're doing. So we thought we've got nothing to lose. We still had an extra cycle with Cyprus available to us, but we thought let's go and see how we get on with these people. We got down to the final 12, and as a result of that, we had a Skype interview with them, and then they chose us as the runner-up. So the couple who won are, I think, same-sex couple, and they are in the process of having their treatment at the moment. And we, as runners-up, got the treatment for half price. So that saves us an awful lot of money and is much easier for us.
Yeah, because it's far from an inexpensive process, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's more money we've discovered in this country, and the waiting lists are longer. And there's things in this country that we wouldn't want for ourselves. We've chosen to go the anonymous route. In this country, it's the law that you have to declare that you're doing it.
Yeah, and so what happens from here on in?
Okay, so when we got told we were runner-up, at that point we booked an initial consultation. And we were quite sort of surprised by that, because with Cyprus, we didn't need one of these. They were just very quite laid back about it all. And maybe that should have rung a few alarm bells for us, because IVS Spain have been very you've got to come and see us, we need to talk to you. So at the end of July, we went over to Alicante. They paid for our accommodation and our initial consultation. We had to pay for our flights, and they basically saw us for a morning. We went over there, they did tests, they did a sperm analysis on Ross, they did a load of checks on me. They sat down with us and took us through the process and told us why we would need each test, whether we would need each test, how it would affect things if we didn't have it. Very informative. I haven't finished my vlog on that yet, and I'll come to that in a minute. but they were very explanatory. They checked me over. They did some blood tests on us for our Ross for his karyotypes, his genes, and me for immunologies and that type of thing. So it was really interesting. They even managed to locate that I had a bit of an infection. Wasn't anything major, but they gave us some prescriptions for that to sort it out.
So I guess even the functional elements of the process have been very different this time round, haven't they? But presumably for both yourself and for Ross, and for Grace as well, I guess, your feelings about it must be quite different second time around too.
I thought it was going to be the magic solution last time. I thought that was it was going to happen. Nothing was going to stop us, and obviously I think I fell harder after the failure of it than I thought I was going to. It hasn't stopped me and it hasn't prevented us carrying on, but I'm much more realistic about it now, I think. And I've got my eyes open in a different way. And I'm prepared to make sure that if it doesn't work this time, that I do take some time off and let myself get upset and have that time, because I don't think I felt like I should have done last time, because I felt like maybe I did something wrong, or maybe this or that, the other. You can sit and analyse things for ages.
Yeah, and it's not something you can just walk away from and close the book on, is it? Because it's such an intense process, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a really big investment of your time, your money, obviously, and your emotions. I mean, the emotions that Ross and I have gone through over the last few years and all of this it's been intense. And I'm glad to say that, you can see why people's relationships don't work when things like this happen. I mean, I'm pleased to say that, even though things have been a bit rocky at times, we're just so supportive of one another. And we've both really taken into account how the other one might be feeling at any given time. And we had a great time when we went over to Spain, and we treated it as a mini holiday for ourselves, because Grace was away herself with her father. So it just gave us a bit of time to ourselves as well, which we don't often get. And so it was nice for us to just have a break. Plus, it was a good time of the year, because at the end of July in Spain is hot. Not like Cyprus when it was raining.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned your Conception Diaries vlogs in passing earlier. So are you still going to be recording further episodes?
I will be. I've got one actually in the can, which I did before we went away, which I haven't put up yet, but I just want another backlog again. So I've got a cushion so that when it does come to the actual attempts and everything happening, I want a backlog again, because I feel like it's not so raw then. I'm going to do some more. In fact, funnily enough, the next thing that's happening is I'm just about to start a mock cycle for them. So what happens is they put us through the medication without going ahead with the transfer, so that they see how my body reacts. So the next thing I'm going to be doing, hopefully this week, if all goes according to plan, because at the moment my body is not doing what it's supposed to. If all goes to plan, then I'll be starting medication later in the week. And then I've got to go for a scan towards the end of the month, so they can measure the lining of my womb to make sure that I've got the right amount of endometrium for them to do the transfer. I've also got to have one injection. At the moment, touch wood, I don't have to have an injection every bloody day. It's only one. And then we're looking at the actual treatment taking place towards the end of October.
Well, we look forward to future updates, and I'm sure everyone listening will be keeping fingers and toes crossed that you receive better news this time round. Moving on. One thing you and I both share is a deep love of music, and as you usually do in August, you were back in Henley for the Rewind Festival for, what was it? Was it the 6th time?
Yeah, well done.
For anyone who doesn't know, can you just quickly describe what Rewind is and exactly what it is you do there?
Sure. So the Rewind Festival, they usually have 3 across the year. And we go to the one Rewind Festival South, and it's based in Henley-on-Thames. Basically, it's a whole load of acts, mainly from the 80s, some from the 90s, and a huge festival over the course of 3 days. So it starts on the Friday and ends on the Sunday. There's numerous fairground rides and side stalls and food tents and dressing up places and blow up inflatable wedding churches and all sorts. And obviously the main event is the big stage, which holds all the big acts. And so for the last 4 years, Ross and I have had the benefit of being able to go in as press. So we've kept in contact with the organiser and we have a great time. They're really friendly people. We go into the press tents. We go in the VIP area, which if you're ever going to Rewind, I fully recommend going and getting the VIP passes. You've got your own section. And even though it's slightly off to the side of the main arena, it's not so busy. There's places to eat and the toilets are lovely.
And as anyone who's ever been to a festival knows, that is of prime importance.
Totally. Believe me, the queues for the toilets in the main area you walk past there and it's the hum follows you as you walk past. But yeah, the VIP section's fantastic. And also if you're in the VIP section, some of the time, some of the acts actually come and wander around, so you get to speak to them.
Yes. Now, who did you manage to interview this year?
Quite a few people, actually. I spoke to Hazel Dean. I also spoke to her on the phone prior to the festival. She's fantastic. What a lovely lady. And she's got an amazing voice. I spoke to Heather Small from M People, Leo Sayer, Lloyd Cole, Roland Gift from Fine Young Cannibals, The Beat, Toya, quite a few people, yeah. It was really great. They were all really accommodating.
Now, we've documented your deep love for Go West before, so if we put them to one side, who was your favourite this year?
Oh, I have to say, you mentioned Go West. Peter Cox was actually in the tent next door and I went and had a chat with him. So, there was a few for me that stood out, and it's not, I don't like sort of giving favourites, but I have to say I thought Heather Small was brilliant. But Rick Astley, oh my gosh, he is fantastic. And he did one of his new songs from his latest album, which I love, and he did my favourite one, so I was very happy. Unfortunately, didn't get to speak to him this year. He didn't come back because he was actually doing the V Festival as well, and he flew by helicopter to then do Rewind. Bless him. So
how the other half live?
Yeah, and that was the first day. They also had Toya on that day. She was great. And the second day, they had Earth, Wind and Fire and The Beat, and they were just fab. The Earth, Wind and Fire are so funky. They're really great. So I enjoyed that. Yeah, we had there was some great acts this year. I have to say as well, Tony Hadley opened the whole thing by singing with an orchestra. He was with the South Bank Symphonia, and he came on and did Life on Mars. There were quite a few tributes to Prince and David Bowie this year. And his song for that, he did a great version. And with the orchestra, it just sounded beautiful.
Yeah, it was the same at Camp Festival as well in July, when there were a lot of DJ sets that were devoted to Bowie and to Prince as well. Yeah, no, that must have been fantastic to see.
Yeah, it was. And I think there was probably tributes everywhere this year at the festivals, because obviously we did lose some major acts this year.
So finally, what else have you, Ross and Grace, been up to this summer?
Oh, cracky. It's mainly been Grace who's been doing her travels, bless her. She's been away a couple of times. She went on Brownie Camp to the New Forest. And then the last week of the holidays, we went to Seaview Holiday Village in Cornwall. We took my niece as well. And the four of us had a great time. We just visited Tellon Bay and went to Loo Beach and, ate Cornish pasties and cream teas. And just made the most. And we were lucky with the weather that last week of the summer holidays as well. We had the last day when we were leaving to go home. It was just horrible. It was like an winter's day. But the rest of the week was great. So we were very lucky. And I bumped into a couple of bloggers, actually. I bumped into Mary Proctor from Over 40 and a Mum to One. And Joy Jackson from Pink Oddie. She was staying in the same park as us. So
bloggers, they get everywhere, don't they?
No, you can't get away from them. So that's it, really. That's what we've done. So
Grace is back at school now, isn't she? She's year 5, is it now?
That's right. Yeah, she started last week, and she said to me after the first day or the second day, "I wish school was on the weekend as well now, Mum. I love it." And I was like, "Yeah, how long is that going to last?"
Just remind her of that in 3 or 4 years' time.
Oh, don't you worry, I will. Yeah, that's being saved in my back pocket for when I need it. She started getting homework, and I can't believe she's already walking to school on her own. Well, not on her own. She's walking with her friends, but she doesn't want me there. I'm cramping her style now. I didn't think it was going to happen that soon. I'm a bit like, oh.
They all grow up so fast, don't they?
Yeah, really too fast. It's quite scary.
Well, it sounds like you have had an incredibly busy summer, but it's lovely to have you back on the podcast.
Oh, it's great to be back. Thank you, Tim. And it sounds like you've had your summer's fill of it as well.
Hey inventors, got an idea for the next big toy? Then get down to the Inventors Workshop this September 20th and pitch your idea to Hasbro, Jazzwares and Argos. Visit inventorsworkshopevent.com to book your place at Whittlebury Hall.
Over the past couple of episodes, I've had the pleasure of talking to Gillian Logan of Skinny Sketcher and Frances Kane of A Girl for All Time, two great examples of parent toy entrepreneurs who've taken their ideas and turned them into successful businesses. Today, however, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak with one of the biggest success stories of the last decade in the toy industry, Rena Nathanson, the creator of the word game Bananagrams. Hello, Rena.
Hello, nice to speak to you.
And to you. So, just to start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your family?
Okay, probably not all that conventional. I grew up in a very sort of art, theatrical environment. So basically everything became a game. We laughed from the morning we woke, the minute we woke up in the morning to when we went to bed at night. There was just a lot of silliness, a lot of game playing. And I was very, very fortunate, I have to say, growing up. And then I obviously got married, had my children, and luckily they had the pleasure of my father, who is the funniest person that I've ever known. They had the pleasure of knowing him, unfortunately, until he passed, in 2010.
So, just in case anyone listening doesn't know, can you just give us a quick summary of what Bananagrams is?
Sure. It's basically a very fast and frenetic word-building race game. It's, some say call it a board game, but it doesn't have a board, so it really isn't a board game. It's a tabletop game, or on the floor, wherever you want to play it. Building words in a word grid, each player playing independently, simultaneously, so there's no turn-taking. It's very exciting, and all different levels of play and ages can play together, which was really the goal when we set out to sort of make the game.
And now you mentioned your father just now, didn't you? Now the inspiration for both the game and its name started with him, didn't it?
Yes, it did. My father was an inspiration in many things in our lives, but we were big game players, all sorts of games, and we couldn't really find anything that we could all play together, where the kids weren't getting bored waiting for their turn or obviously being slammed by the adults. And in turn, the adults, if we played a kid game, they would slam us. So there wasn't anything that we could all play together. So that's really the inspiration of where that came from when, my dad was playing a rather long-winded game of Scrabble with my son. It was just taking forever. And, that really inspired us to find something that was quick, more user-friendly and instant gratification, which was Bananagrams.
Yeah, I mean, our kids love it, and exactly as you say, they don't always have the patience to play longer games, so the fact that it is a very fast-moving game is great for them. Now, you launched the game at the London Toy Fair back in 2006, so Bananagrams celebrated its 10th birthday earlier this year, so how many copies of the game have been sold so far?
Our 10th bananiversary this year, which is very exciting. We have sold near to 7 million copies so far globally. So we really are very, very lucky, very fortunate.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes the game a genuine international success, doesn't it? And it's on sale in, I think, something like 30 or 31 countries. And I know Amazon UK named it their best-selling game ever. And yeah. I read somewhere, I think that even the cast of Downton Abbey used to play it on set, didn't they?
Yes, they were great fans. That was really exciting. And we have images of them all in their period attire, between takes playing, on set, which is just phenomenal. And, we've got some great fans in, Dame Judi Dench and Graham Norton, and all sorts of different people, which is fantastically fun for us. The one coup, I'm still hoping to get Stephen Fry. That's my one dream.
Oh, absolutely.
He'd be my dream audience. But yeah, we're very fortunate in that it does translate to quite a lot of different languages. So we have had, a few challenges along the way translating it, but generally the gameplay doesn't change at all.
So going back to when you were first getting Bananagrams onto the market, did you have much business experience when you were starting out?
No, in a word, absolutely none. I had, I'd worked a lot of different jobs. I was a, graphic designer for many, many years. I ran an art gallery. I had a little bit of an idea. But, the art gallery taught me quite a lot about business, because that is a business at the end of the day. But I really didn't know, really. And I've had to learn. I'm still learning every single day, even now as we grow. It is one continual learning curve.
Yeah, so I guess that must have been a pretty hectic period and a steep learning curve for you, presumably with some really long hours as well.
Yeah, it was very long hours, I have to say. I did work from home, which was fantastic because I could sort of deal with the kids, get them off to school or whatever, come back, work, pick them up, do dinner, get them to bed, and then I go back to work, which was, challenging because I work a lot with the U.S. We have a U.S. office, and they're 5 hours, 5-hour difference. So their sort of morning was my 2 p.m., and, often I still do until into the wee hours, basically. So it is a rather long day, but it's great.
Yeah, and you said you were managing around your kids while you were trying to build the business. Now they're teenagers now, aren't they? But they would have been about 8 and 5 or thereabouts when you were developing the game?
Nearabouts, yes, pretty much. And
would you say that was the single biggest challenge then, trying to juggle being a mum while trying to get this business off the ground?
I would say just functioning on a day-to-day, trying to get everything done. Just like any other single working mom, it's, laundry and cooking and animals and school runs, and it's all of that whilst trying to have business meetings and fitting everything in and around that. But I did it, and I would, some people said, well, why don't you go get an office, rent some kind of serviced office. I much prefer being at home, working in and out, because I can do 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, step out, step back. And it suited me really down to the ground. And my kids, it was important that I was around. So that worked out really, really well.
Yeah, and I guess it's given you that flexibility, hasn't it, to merge your business and home lives, and I guess it's all been worth it in the end, of course, hasn't it?
Hey, one of the bonuses is, I could have been, put in prison for child labor because my kids were helping me with the tagging and the boxing, and I put them to work on the kitchen table, so they learned a bit about it as well and what it takes. So I think that was no bad thing, really.
Yeah, now, Bananagrams has also spawned a series of similar fruit-themed games, hasn't it? So can you tell us more about its siblings?
Yes, of course I can. Basically, when we came out with Bananagrams, we were asked a lot for games for much younger children. So that, as you say, spawned the Apple Letters and Pairs and Pairs. Each have very different gameplay and supply very different sort of things for all the kids. And they really were quite a nice success with the younger audience, I have to say. We also have Fruit Dominoes as well, which has really, in a funny way, taken off even with adults, with the elderly in, homes and all sorts of things. So we sort of tried to listen to what our customers and fans were saying and come up with something that would suit their needs. And we did a lot of play testing as well with focus groups and things for both of those games, and listened, which was really, I think, pretty unusual. Isn't now, but it was then when we actually said, oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Our kids started out on Apple Letters, and then they've then grown up and moved on to Bananagrams. They like both games because, as we said before, they're fast and they're fun, and as parents, we love the way they encourage the kids to work with their literacy skills in a very creative and flexible way. So they've been brilliant games for them.
I think the flexibility is key to all of our games in that we're sort of like the anti-rule company. We give, some rules, but the more people want to play with those rules, change them, make them their own, we encourage that.
So what's been happening with the range over the past year or so, and have you got any future plans that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, we're very excited to have just very recently launched 2 new games. One, my first, Bananagrams, which goes a step further than the apple, letters, and pears in that. It has lowercase letters and a lot of exercises and activities for preschoolers and pre-readers. And we have in it joined letters, digraphs, like a T and an H and all the vowels, A, E, O, O, to encourage kids at the very, very beginning of building their words. And I think lowercase is very, very key. There aren't that many things out there that have lowercase, and they're nice big tiles. Kids can handle them. They're still made out of that very wonderful material, the urea, which, feels so great. So we're really excited about my first. And also as part of our Bananiversary celebration, we have Party Bananagrams, which again, I guess, feeds into the adult needs for battle play. There's a lot of naughty things that you can do to your opponents when you're playing Bananagrams Party. If you pick up a certain tile, you can make one of your opponents stand on one foot for the whole of the rest of the round, or you can tell one of your opponents to play with no thumbs or one hand only. And also there's the ability, if you get 2 specific tiles, you have the chance to destroy one of your opponent's grids. So it's rather battle, but really fun. Really gets so competitive. It's super fun.
That does sound like fun. That's something I'll definitely have to look out for. So let's talk for a moment about the Inventors Workshop, which is back at Whittlebury Hall on September the 20th. Now, you're coming this year as well, but you also appeared as part of a panel, didn't you, at the very first one back in 2014. So what did you speak about as part of that?
Well, I was honored to be asked, I have to say, because I'm still a novice in this industry, even though, we've had a success with Bananagrams and our other games. I still feel very, very much like a novice. So I was really honored to be asked. We basically took questions from the audience and touched on, I guess, things that inventors want to know, pitfalls and hurdles, what to avoid, and what to do, the first things you should do. It was very interesting. And even listening to all the other panelists and the other talks, it was a really great day. It was so interesting to speak to and hear people speaking from all different parts of the industry. That it's a really nice event.
Yeah. Now, so what are your thoughts about an event like the Inventors Workshop? Now, you'd made your way in the industry before the first one came along, but what value would you say it offers potential startups who might be in the same situation you were in when you were starting out 10 years ago?
I think it's a fabulous place for getting advice and guidance and even mentorship. If you meet and click with somebody to sort of hook up with people that will really see you through and help you through your journey. It's a lot of advice from people who are pretty clever. I end up always asking a lot of questions myself because, as I said, I'm still learning. So getting advice from people is fantastic. Sounding boards, throwing your ideas out there and getting honest opinions, not just people who want to be nice and say, oh, yes, that's great. It's nice to get, constructive criticism, which I think you'll get from that crowd. It's a really nice melting pot for people. I also think, I think the gaming world is a very, very different place now when I started out with Bananagrams. There was no crowdfunding, there was no Kickstarter, and you really had to go cap in hand, and it was a real fight up the mountain to get your game in front of anybody with any buying power, especially with the big box stores, the big boys. Now, it's very interesting because there's so much more room for creativity and freedom with young inventors or any age inventors, young as in not experienced inventors as well as age. The landscape has changed totally. People can have an idea, also 3D printing, You can get mock-ups made. You know, people at the Inventors Workshop now, they might show up with a mock-up that they've made on a 3D printer. You know, 10 years ago, it was crazy. You couldn't even explain to anybody what that might have been like. So the world has really changed, but in a really exciting way, I think. It's terrific because it gives people, it's not as scary.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know when I was speaking to both Gillian Logan and to Francis Kane, they both said that it's much more an environment where inventors and independent companies can thrive in a way that maybe they couldn't 20 or even 10 years ago.
Yeah, even 10 years ago, when I think about what I had to do to get our games in front of the powers that be, it was a struggle, and you needed them. You really needed them. Now, because you needed that big order from some big store to justify your production run. Now, with crowdfunding and everything else, you can raise the money and have a small production run and try things. It's so exciting. I really think it's great.
Yeah, and I know speaking to Frances last week, she was saying that the funding for her latest range of dolls, a lot of that has come from a Kickstarter campaign, which, as you say, a decade or so ago, that kind of funding mechanic just didn't exist. So I guess finally, what one piece of advice would you give to any budding toy or game entrepreneurs out there?
A couple of things. I guess I do get asked that question. One, protect your idea. Don't be try to save money and not protect your idea, because people will not be ethical some of the time. You can't count on everybody being honest all of the time. So I would protect your idea. And the other thing is really explore production details and get your costs correct, including, costs of production, packaging, shipping, taxes, VAT, because I got caught out at the beginning with VAT. We were producing on the American dollar, and then I got here, and at the time it was 15% VAT on top of everything, and that threw us for a loop, and we had to make some very quick adjustments. So just really looking at all of the financial details, and margins, get those very, very clear. And I would say one more thing I would advise is be prepared to produce a lot of extra stock to give away as sampling, because people really do need to play with, feel, hold, and see a product before they'll order it. And, you can make the most beautiful brochure in the world. Unless somebody's holding your item and playing it, it's very unlikely they're just going to order out of a brochure.
Yeah, no, I think that's really sound advice. So thank you, Rena, for taking the time to talk to me today, and best of luck for the future. And hopefully we'll have a chance to chat at the Inventors Workshop next week.
Yes, I look forward to meeting you face to face. That will be a treat. So thank you very much.
That's great. So if you have an idea for a toy or a game that you're thinking of launching into the market, then why not sign up for the Inventors Workshop? It takes place next week on Tuesday the 20th of September at Whittlebury Hall in Northamptonshire. You can find out more about it at inventorsworkshopevent.com. And that's it for another episode of the Meet the Parents podcast. We'll be back next week, but in the meantime, here's where you can find the two of us online.
You can find me, Verily Victoria Vocalises, and the URL is vevivos.com, and I'm on Twitter at Vic Welton.
And you can find me at slouchingtowardsthatcham.com and on Twitter at ThatchamDad. So you can download this podcast on iTunes and Android devices, on our website at meettheparentspodcast.com, and via a variety of podcasting apps. Do please also give us a follow on Twitter at Parents Podcast and Facebook at facebook.com/meettheparentspodcast. So thank you very much for listening, and do please join us again next week. Good night.